You thought you'd seen it all, but tonight, the drama hits a whole new level. Just when fans believed the Rasheeda and Kirk Frost saga had finally gone quiet, the silence shattered, and what followed left the internet absolutely spiraling. Whispers turned into receipts, side-eyes turned into confrontations, and one quiet move by Rasheeda sent shockwaves through everyone who thought they knew her next step. Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and suddenly the power dynamic flipped in a way no one saw coming. Because here's the part nobody was ready for, Rasheeda didn't cry this time. She didn't beg, she didn't explain herself, she moved on, calmly, confidently, and without looking back. And that's exactly why Kirk Frost is allegedly panicking behind closed doors. Sources close to the situation say he never believed she'd actually do it. He thought she'd stay, he thought time would smooth everything over. But instead, Rasheeda made a move so calculated, so self-assured, that it left everyone asking the same question: was this her revenge, or her rebirth? Meanwhile, Jasmine? Oh, Jasmine is living her best life, unapologetically. While critics expected her to fade into the background, she did the exact opposite. Posting, smiling, thriving, and according to fans watching every frame, every caption feels intentional. Every laugh feels louder, every moment feels like a message. And the timing? Way too perfect to be accidental. The internet is buzzing with one burning question: is Jasmine winning, or is she just playing her role in a much bigger game? Behind the scenes, friends are choosing sides, family members are allegedly clashing, and long-buried resentments are crawling back to the surface. Heated arguments erupted off camera. Accusations flew in private conversations that somehow didn't stay private for long. And as the story unfolds, one thing becomes painfully clear: this isn't just about love or betrayal anymore. It's about pride, control, and who gets the final word. Viewers are split down the middle. Some are cheering Rasheeda on, calling her glow-up legendary. Others believe Kirk is finally realizing the cost of his choices, too late. And then there are those watching Jasmine closely, wondering if this best life era is the calm before an even bigger storm. So buckle up, because this breakdown of events is messier than anyone expected. Loyalties will be tested, secrets will surface, and by the time this story reaches its latest twist, you might find yourself questioning who really won, and who's about to regret everything. The tension didn't explode all at once. It crept in slowly, like a quiet storm gathering behind closed doors. Rasheeda had been moving differently for weeks, and the people closest to her felt it before they understood it. She wasn't venting anymore. She wasn't calling friends late at night. She wasn't replaying old arguments or asking for reassurance. Instead, she was calm in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. The kind of calm that usually comes right before a major decision. Fans watching from the outside sensed it too. Comments flooded in asking why she looked lighter, why her smile felt sharper, why Kirk suddenly looked like the one trying to hold things together. Inside the house, the energy had shifted. Kirk noticed it first during a quiet breakfast that barely counted as a conversation. Rasheeda sat across from him scrolling on her phone, nodding politely at whatever he was saying, but her eyes never lingered. He tried to crack a joke, something familiar, something safe, but it landed flat. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That was when panic crept in. Kirk had always relied on her emotional reactions to gauge where he stood. Anger meant she cared, tears meant she was still invested. But this silence? This was new territory. Later that day, Kirk pulled his brother aside, his voice low and tight. He admitted something he'd never said out loud before. He felt like he was losing her, and not in a dramatic way. It was worse than that. It felt final. His brother tried to reassure him, saying Rasheeda had always come back before, that time had a way of smoothing things over. But Kirk couldn't shake the feeling that this time was different. He could feel it in how she moved through the house, independent, unbothered, like she was already living a life that didn't include him. While Kirk spiraled quietly, Rasheeda was doing the opposite. She was reconnecting with parts of herself she had put on pause for years. Early morning workouts, late-night business calls, spontaneous dinners with friends who reminded her who she used to be before compromise became a lifestyle. One close friend later revealed that Rasheeda had finally said the words out loud during one of those dinners. She said she was tired of surviving situations she didn't create. She said she wanted peace more than apologies. The table went silent, and everyone knew that something irreversible had just been spoken into existence. And then there was Jasmine. Her presence in the story had always been controversial, but now it felt unavoidable. While Rasheeda was quietly reclaiming her power, Jasmine was unapologetically visible. Social media became her stage. Smiling selfies, carefree captions, moments that screamed freedom. Fans are shocked by how intentional it all seemed. Every post dropped at just the right time, every smile just wide enough to spark speculation. People argued online about whether Jasmine was truly happy or simply enjoying the attention. Either way, she was winning the moment. Rumors started flying when Jasmine posted a photo laughing with friends at a rooftop lounge, captioned with a phrase about choosing happiness over chaos. Within minutes, fans were dissecting it, connecting dots, tagging Kirk, tagging Rasheeda, fueling a fire that didn't need much encouragement. Kirk saw the post late that night, his jaw tightening as he scrolled through the comments. For the first time, he felt exposed. Not powerful, not in control, just exposed. That exposure followed him into a heated argument with Rasheeda the next morning. Emotions ran high as he demanded to know why she wasn't reacting, why she wasn't fighting anymore. Rasheeda listened calmly, arms crossed, letting him speak himself into exhaustion. When he finally stopped, she said something that would replay in his mind for days. She told him she had already done all her fighting. She told him she was choosing herself now. The room fell silent, heavy with the weight of her words. News of the argument spread quickly through their circle. Family members called, some offering support, others questioning her decision. The family was left divided. Some believed she was finally doing what was best for her. Others worried about the long-term consequences, about image, about history, about loyalty. Rasheeda heard them all, but she didn't waver. For once, she wasn't seeking validation. She was standing firm. Meanwhile, Kirk attempted damage control. He reached out to friends, to mentors, even to people he hadn't spoken to in years, hoping someone could help him understand how he lost the upper hand. But every conversation led back to the same uncomfortable truth. He had underestimated her. He had assumed forgiveness was infinite. And now he was watching the foundation of his life crack in real time. Jasmine's best life era only intensified the pressure. She went live one evening, laughing, answering questions, dodging anything too direct but never denying her happiness. Viewers flooded the chat with theories and accusations, but she stayed unbothered. Her calm confidence only fueled the narrative that she had moved on without regret. Whether that was true or not didn't matter anymore. Perception had taken over. Rasheeda watched the live later that night, not with jealousy, but with clarity. She realized that everyone was playing their part, and she finally understood hers. She wasn't there to compete or explain or defend. She was there to evolve. That realization settled into her bones, steady and grounding. As the days passed, Kirk felt the walls closing in. Fans questioned him openly. Friends distanced themselves. Even the house felt unfamiliar. Every room held memories that now felt like reminders of what he stood to lose. He tried one last time to appeal to Rasheeda's history with him, bringing up sacrifices, shared struggles, everything they had built together. She acknowledged it all, but she didn't let it trap her. She told him something that ended the conversation without shouting or tears. She said love shouldn't feel like constant recovery. She said growth sometimes means letting go, even when it hurts. Kirk had no response. For the first time, words failed him. Outside, the internet buzzed louder than ever. Fans debated, chose sides, created narratives that took on lives of their own. Some celebrated Rasheeda's strength, others accused Jasmine of enjoying the chaos. Kirk became the cautionary tale no one wanted to admit they saw coming. And as this chapter unfolded, one truth became impossible to ignore. Nothing was going back to the way it was. The silence, the calm, the confidence in Rasheeda's voice all pointed to something bigger on the horizon. The storm hadn't hit yet, but it was close. And when it did, everyone involved would feel it. The shift became undeniable the moment Rasheeda packed an overnight bag and left without announcing it. No dramatic exit, no slammed doors, just quiet footsteps and a car pulling away before sunrise. Kirk woke up to an empty side of the bed and a note that didn't explain much, only stating she needed space to think clearly. That single sentence hit harder than any argument they'd ever had. Space meant freedom, and freedom meant he no longer controlled the narrative. Within hours, phones started ringing. Kirk's mother called first, her voice sharp with concern and confusion. She asked where Rasheeda was, what had happened this time, and whether things had gone too far. Kirk tried to downplay it, insisting it was just a break, but even he didn't sound convinced. By noon, cousins, friends, and associates were all asking the same question. Nobody had seen Rasheeda. Nobody knew where she was staying. And that uncertainty made everyone nervous. Rasheeda, meanwhile, sat in a quiet hotel room overlooking the city, sipping coffee and staring out the window like she was seeing her life from a distance for the first time. The silence wasn't lonely, it was healing. Her phone buzzed nonstop, but she ignored it, choosing instead to journal, to reflect, to breathe without feeling watched or judged. She replayed years of moments where she had swallowed her feelings to keep the peace. Each memory confirmed what her heart already knew. This decision was overdue. Back home, Kirk couldn't sit still. He paced the living room, replaying their last conversation, wondering where he went wrong or if he'd even notice when he did. Frustration turned into anger, and anger turned into fear. He confided in a close friend that night, admitting he never thought Rasheeda would actually walk away. He said he believed their history would always outweigh the damage. His friend listened quietly before asking a question that cut deep. What if history was the damage? As Kirk wrestled with that thought, Jasmine continued to dominate the conversation online. She posted a video dancing in her kitchen, laughing freely, music blaring in the background. Fans are shocked at how carefree she looked amid the chaos. The comments exploded instantly. Some praised her confidence. Others accused her of being insensitive. Jasmine addressed none of it directly. Instead, she smiled into the camera and said she was choosing joy every day, no matter what people thought. That clip reached Rasheeda through a group chat she hadn't muted yet. One friend asked how she felt seeing Jasmine so happy. Rasheeda didn't respond immediately. When she finally did, she sent a single message that surprised everyone. She said she hoped Jasmine really was happy. The group went quiet. That response spoke volumes. It wasn't defeat, it was detachment. Kirk, on the other hand, didn't take it as calmly. Seeing Jasmine thrive publicly while his marriage unraveled privately sent him into a spiral. He confronted Jasmine over the phone, his voice tense, accusing her of adding fuel to the fire. Jasmine fired back, reminding him that she didn't owe him silence or sacrifice. Emotions ran high as years of unresolved tension spilled out in that conversation. Jasmine accused Kirk of trying to control the narrative when it suited him. Kirk accused her of enjoying the fallout. Neither walked away feeling victorious. That call didn't stay private for long. Word spread quickly through mutual connections, each retelling adding more heat to the story. Fans picked sides once again, speculating about motives and hidden agendas. The family was left divided, unsure of who to support or how to navigate the growing mess. Every gathering felt tense, every conversation loaded with unspoken opinions. Rasheeda's absence changed everything. Her calm response, her refusal to engage in public drama, only amplified her presence. Fans began praising her strength, calling her evolution inspiring. Messages flooded her inbox from women who saw themselves in her story. She read them quietly, absorbing the support without letting it overwhelm her. For the first time, she felt seen without being scrutinized. Kirk tried to win her back the only way he knew how, with grand gestures and promises of change. He sent flowers to the hotel, left voicemails apologizing, reminded her of their shared dreams. But Rasheeda didn't rush back. She didn't reject him outright either. She simply asked for time, and that request alone unsettled him. Time meant she was thinking, and thinking meant she might realize she didn't need him at all. One evening, Rasheeda finally agreed to meet Kirk face to face in a neutral space. The tension was thick as soon as they sat down. Kirk looked exhausted, his confidence shaken. Rasheeda looked grounded, centered, almost unrecognizable in her calm. He spoke first, apologizing again, promising therapy, transparency, a fresh start. She listened, nodding, but her eyes remained steady. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse or insult. She simply explained how lonely she had felt even when she wasn't alone. How every betrayal chipped away at her trust. How she no longer recognized herself in the role she'd been playing. Kirk tried to interrupt, but she stopped him gently, telling him she needed to finish. That moment alone shifted the power dynamic completely. Outside the restaurant, paparazzi lingered, hungry for any sign of reconciliation or collapse. Photos surfaced online within minutes, sparking fresh waves of speculation. Fans analyzed body language, expressions, even the distance between their chairs. Some believed there was hope. Others saw finality in Rasheeda's posture. The truth sat somewhere in between, unresolved and heavy. Back at home, Jasmine watched the coverage quietly. Her smile faded as she realized how deep the situation truly ran. For the first time, doubt crept in. She wondered if living her best life publicly had consequences she hadn't considered. Still, she refused to retreat. She reminded herself that she deserved happiness too, regardless of how the story unfolded. As night fell, Kirk sat alone, scrolling through comments, headlines, and opinions from strangers who felt entitled to his life. Regret settled in, heavy and unrelenting. He realized too late that control had never been love, and silence had never been forgiveness. Somewhere across the city, Rasheeda stared at her reflection, seeing strength where there used to be compromise. Nothing was resolved that night. No decisions were announced, no statements released, but the lines had been drawn. Choices were being made quietly, deliberately. And with every passing hour, the distance between who they were and who they were becoming grew wider. The calm before the next wave felt almost deceptive because everyone could sense it. The next move would change everything. By the next morning, the energy around everything had shifted again, heavier and louder, like the calm had finally cracked. Kirk woke up to notifications he didn't want to read. Blogs were running with headlines about Rasheeda reclaiming her independence, fans praising her strength, and whispers that she was preparing for a life that didn't include him at all. Each headline felt like another nail in a door he suddenly realized might be closing for good. He told himself the internet didn't know the full story, but deep down he knew perception had already started to become reality. Rasheeda spent that morning meeting with people who had nothing to do with Kirk. Business partners, advisors, women who had rebuilt their lives after public heartbreak. The conversations were empowering but also grounding. No one sugar-coated anything. They reminded her that moving on wasn't glamorous every day. That strength sometimes looked like doubt. But they also reminded her that staying stuck out of fear was its own kind of loss. She listened carefully, absorbing every word, feeling herself step further into a version of her life she had only imagined before. Kirk tried again to rally support, this time from family. A tense dinner was arranged with close relatives, and emotions ran high the moment Rasheeda's name came up. Some defended her fiercely, saying she had endured enough. Others urged Kirk to fight for his marriage, insisting that walking away would undo everything they'd built. The family was left divided, voices raised, old arguments resurfacing. Kirk sat there, realizing for the first time that he wasn't just losing Rasheeda, he was losing the unity he once relied on to keep things stable. Meanwhile, Jasmine's best life narrative began to face scrutiny of its own. Fans who once praised her confidence started asking tougher questions. Was the happiness real or performative? Was she truly free or just distracting herself? During a late-night live, someone asked her directly if she felt any guilt watching a family fall apart. Jasmine paused longer than usual before answering. She said everyone had choices and consequences, and she was done carrying weight that wasn't hers. The chat exploded. Fans are shocked by her bluntness, some applauding it, others condemning it. That clip reached Kirk within minutes. He felt exposed all over again, but this time it wasn't anger that surfaced, it was embarrassment. He realized how small his voice had become in a story he once controlled. Even Jasmine wasn't protecting him anymore. He wondered if anyone still was. Rasheeda watched the same clip later, alone, her expression unreadable. Instead of reacting emotionally, she felt a strange sense of closure. It confirmed what she already knew. Everyone was choosing themselves now, and she wasn't going to be the only one expected to stay stuck in sacrifice. A few days later, Kirk asked for another meeting. Rasheeda agreed, but this time she brought someone with her, a mediator she trusted. The dynamic shifted immediately. Kirk noticed it the moment he sat down. This wasn't a conversation about fixing things anymore. It was about clarity. Boundaries were set, expectations spoken out loud. Rasheeda explained what she needed to feel safe, respected, and whole again. Kirk listened, but it became clear that what she needed required a level of accountability he wasn't prepared for. Emotions ran high when Kirk tried to defend his intentions instead of acknowledging the impact of his actions. The mediator gently redirected the conversation, but the damage was already evident. Rasheeda's patience thinned, not into anger, but into resolve. She said she refused to negotiate her peace any longer. That sentence landed hard. Kirk went quiet, finally understanding that love without trust was no longer enough for her. Outside that room, the world kept spinning. Fans speculated endlessly, reading between lines of vague posts and carefully worded statements. Some believed reconciliation was still possible. Others believed Rasheeda was already gone emotionally. Theories grew wilder by the day, but one thing remained consistent. Public support for Rasheeda continued to grow. She had become a symbol of choosing self-worth over familiarity. Jasmine began to feel the pressure of the narrative shifting. What once felt like freedom now felt like being watched constantly. Every smile was analyzed, every caption questioned. She confided in a close friend that living her best life didn't feel as light anymore. The friend reminded her that visibility came with a cost, and she had chosen to stay visible. Jasmine nodded, knowing it was true. Kirk, meanwhile, started to confront a reality he had avoided for years. He admitted to himself that he had relied on Rasheeda's loyalty as a safety net. That her strength had allowed him to be careless. The regret hit harder now because it wasn't theoretical anymore. It was happening. He tried one last emotional appeal, sending Rasheeda a message about memories, family, and the future he still wanted. She read it, sat with it, and chose not to respond right away. Instead, Rasheeda focused on herself. She started planning things that didn't revolve around repairing damage. Trips, projects, personal goals she had postponed. Each plan felt like a small rebellion against the version of herself that had stayed silent for too long. Friends noticed the change immediately. She laughed more freely. Her posture was different. She looked like someone who had stopped asking for permission. The silence between her and Kirk stretched longer than either expected. It became a presence of its own, loud in its absence. Kirk waited for her response, refreshing his phone more times than he wanted to admit. Every hour without a reply chipped away at his hope. He realized that waiting was the consequence of taking her for granted. Jasmine, sensing the shift, pulled back slightly from posting. Not out of guilt, but out of exhaustion. She was tired of being a headline. Tired of being framed as either villain or victor. She wanted her life back, even if that meant letting the noise die down. As the days passed, it became clear that this wasn't just a chapter of drama. It was a turning point. Relationships were being redefined, power was being redistributed, and no matter how it ended, nothing would return to its old shape. Rasheeda stood at the center of it all, calm, steady, aware that the hardest part wasn't leaving or staying, but accepting that growth often meant disappointing people who benefited from your silence. And somewhere in that realization, the next decision was already forming. The decision didn't come with an announcement. It came with a shift in how Rasheeda carried herself, like someone who had already chosen peace even before saying it out loud. She returned home briefly to gather personal things, moving through the house with intention, not nostalgia. Kirk watched from a distance, unsure whether to help or stay out of the way. Every item she packed felt symbolic, and every pause felt heavier than words. He wanted to ask if this was permanent, but fear kept him silent. That silence followed her out the door again, and this time it felt different. Final. Kirk sat alone afterward, replaying the sound of her footsteps fading down the hallway. It wasn't anger that flooded him. It was the realization that he had lost access to her emotional labor. No more explanations. No more reassurance. No more chances wrapped in patience. Word spread quickly that Rasheeda was officially staying elsewhere long-term. Fans are shocked by how firm the move appeared. Speculation turned into certainty for many. Blogs framed it as her choosing herself once and for all. Supporters celebrated her strength, while critics questioned whether it was too drastic. Rasheeda didn't respond to any of it. She had stopped living in reaction mode. Kirk, however, was unraveling quietly. He met with a therapist for the first time, admitting patterns he had never named before. Control, entitlement, emotional avoidance. The session left him drained and exposed. For the first time, he understood that apologies without change were meaningless. But understanding came late, and he knew it. Family gatherings became tense without Rasheeda present. Her absence was louder than her presence ever was. Some relatives expressed disappointment in Kirk openly, no longer shielding him. Others tried to stay neutral, urging reconciliation for the sake of family unity. The family was left divided, each side convinced they were protecting something important. Jasmine's life continued to unfold under scrutiny. Her attempts to step back from posting only fueled more curiosity. Fans read into her silence just as deeply as they once read into her smiles. Rumors circulated that she was feeling isolated, that the attention she once thrived on had become overwhelming. Jasmine finally broke her silence in a brief post, saying that healing didn't always look loud or joyful, and sometimes growth happened privately. The response was mixed, but the tone had shifted. People were starting to see her as human instead of a symbol. Behind closed doors, Jasmine wrestled with her own emotions. She questioned whether her happiness had been genuine or simply a reaction to chaos. She admitted to a friend that she felt caught between freedom and guilt, unsure where one ended and the other began. It was the first time she allowed herself to sit with discomfort instead of performing happiness for the world. Rasheeda, meanwhile, felt lighter but not careless. Healing wasn't instant. There were moments of doubt, moments where memories resurfaced unexpectedly. But instead of spiraling, she acknowledged them and let them pass. She began therapy too, not to fix herself, but to unlearn survival habits she had mistaken for strength. Each session peeled back layers she didn't realize she carried. Kirk noticed the shift from afar. He saw her confidence in recent photos, the way she stood taller, the way her eyes looked clearer. It stung, not because she was happy, but because he realized he had underestimated her capacity to move forward without him. Regret turned into accountability, but accountability without access felt powerless. One evening, Kirk reached out again, not with promises but with honesty. He admitted his mistakes without excuses. He acknowledged the pain he caused without minimizing it. He said he was working on himself whether she stayed or not. Rasheeda read the message slowly. It was different from the others. More grounded, more real, but it didn't erase the past. She responded kindly but firmly, telling him she needed to continue focusing on herself. She didn't close the door completely, but she didn't reopen it either. Fans dissected her response when it leaked through whispers. Some applauded her boundaries. Others hoped it meant reconciliation was still possible. The ambiguity kept the story alive, but Rasheeda remained unmoved by speculation. She had learned that clarity for herself mattered more than clarity for the public. Jasmine watched the narrative shift again, realizing that her role in the story was changing. She was no longer the focal point. Rasheeda was, and that realization brought unexpected relief. She stepped further back, choosing to live quietly for a while. Fewer posts, fewer explanations, just life, unfiltered. Kirk faced consequences in ways he hadn't anticipated. Business relationships cooled, opportunities stalled. People questioned his judgment openly now that the shield of a united front was gone. He understood then that Rasheeda had protected him in more ways than he ever acknowledged. Losing her meant facing the full weight of his actions alone. Rasheeda continued building a life rooted in intention. She surrounded herself with people who respected her boundaries. She said no more often. She stopped over-explaining. Friends described her as peaceful but powerful, calm but unshakable. The transformation didn't come from revenge. It came from release. The internet buzzed with talk of what would happen next. Would Kirk truly change? Would Rasheeda ever look back? Would Jasmine re-emerge publicly or fade into her own quiet chapter? Unanswered questions fueled engagement, but the truth was unfolding slowly, away from the noise. One thing had become clear. The dynamics had shifted permanently. Power no longer lived in chaos or control. It lived in self-awareness and choice. Rasheeda had chosen herself. Kirk was learning the cost of taking someone's loyalty for granted. And Jasmine was learning that freedom meant accountability too. As this phase settled, it felt like the end of one story and the beginning of another. Not everything was resolved, not everyone was healed, but the direction was set. And the next chapter promised to challenge every assumption they once lived by. So here we are, at the point where everything feels settled on the surface, but nothing is truly finished. Rasheeda has stepped into her power, Kirk is left facing the consequences of choices he once thought would never catch up to him, and Jasmine is navigating a version of freedom that isn't as simple as it looks online. Fans are shocked by how fast everything shifted, but also by how quiet it became once the dust started to settle. Because sometimes the loudest endings don't come with shouting, they come with silence, distance, and people choosing themselves. Now the real question is this. Did Rasheeda make the final move, or is this just the beginning of a brand new chapter where everyone is forced to evolve whether they're ready or not? Kirk says he's changing, but change takes time, and time doesn't always wait for regret to catch up. Jasmine says she's living her best life, but what does that really mean when the cameras turn off and the comments stop scrolling? And Rasheeda, calm and unbothered on the outside, still carries years of memories that don't just disappear overnight. This story leaves us with more questions than answers, and that's exactly why everyone is watching so closely. Will Kirk truly do the work, or will he realize too late that accountability without access is the hardest lesson of all? Will Jasmine find peace away from the spotlight, or will she step back into it stronger and louder than before? And most importantly, will Rasheeda ever look back, or has she finally closed a chapter that defined her for far too long? Now this is where you come in. Because this drama isn't just entertainment, it's a conversation. You've watched the rise, the fall, the silence, and the shift. You've seen loyalty tested, boundaries set, and power change hands. So I want to know what you think. Do you believe Rasheeda is truly done, or do you think there's still unfinished business between her and Kirk? Do you think Kirk deserves another chance if he proves real change, or is some damage simply irreversible? And how do you really feel about Jasmine? Is she misunderstood, or is she benefiting from chaos she didn't fully consider? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story hits differently depending on where you're standing. If you've ever chosen yourself after being taken for granted, this one probably felt personal. If you've ever realized too late what you lost, this one probably stung. And if you've ever tried to live freely while the world judged every move, you already know how complicated that can be. Make sure you like this video if this breakdown had you hooked from start to finish, because your support lets us keep bringing you these deep dives into the drama everyone's talking about. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next update, twist, or reveal, because you already know this story isn't completely over yet. And turn on notifications so you're the first to know when the next chapter drops. Until then, remember this. Peace is power. Silence is a response. And sometimes the biggest regret comes from underestimating someone who was quietly preparing to walk away. Stay tuned, stay watching, and stay in the comments, because this conversation is far from finished.